You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, world, and welcome to Tales from Hollywoodland, a veritable feast of movies, television, Broadway, showbiz stories, and maybe even a little bit of news and gossip. With Julian Schlossberg, Arthur E. Friedman, Stephen J. Rubin, and hey, I'm your producer and announcer, Mike Faber. Today, we're remembering Diane Keaton. And now, here's Steve.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Hi, Arthur. Hi, Julian. Hi, everybody. It was a sad day when we heard that Diane Keaton had passed. It's funny because I didn't think of her dying. It's like she was one of those performers that you kind of felt would be around forever. And I just was a little surprised, as we all were. She was still working. Julian, when was the first time you saw Diane Keaton? Did you see her on Broadway first?
I did not, even though she played in Hair, and she was one of the only actors that refused to go nude at the end. She would not do that. And they did not fire her for that. She was able to stay on. But at the end of Hair, for those of us who saw it, the cast does come out without any clothes. So it was interesting.
She in the show, Julian, Love is Another Stranger on Broadway?
No, but she did the movie, Arth.
I know.
That was her first movie, but she did not do the Broadway show.
So not knowing her at all, you mean to tell me that I'm sitting in a theater on Broadway and all of a sudden the stage is covered with naked people?
I am telling you that.
I saw it, yeah.
Were those pleasing bodies?
Well, it was pretty shocking at the time, and they also had a show called Oh Calcutta, where the same thing happened. Yeah. So it kind of went through a nude phase, I guess. It was,
it wasn't sexy. I'm telling you, I saw it in Boston. It just didn't come across as sexy.
Not at all, not in the least. But she was a very unique character. I mean, we lived in the same building in New York, but I never knew her except to say hello, and she'd say hello, and that was it. But she was for many years a New Yorker, but she was born and bred in California, as you guys probably know. But she fell in love with New York City and spent almost 20 years there. But very original in so many ways. I had no idea of the idea, for example, I don't know if you guys knew that she got into real estate in California and would buy homes, redecorate them, clean them up, and sell them for a big profit. She was very successful in real estate. I had no idea until we were doing this show.
She was a flipper.
Yeah, she flipped houses, but she liked fixing them up. She had a lot of talent. She was a photographer and a really well received photographer, and had a lot of abilities. And of course, I don't think she ever really married, did she?
Not really, although she adopted 2 children. And her style of dress, I mean, we all, of course, remember her from Annie Hall. She won the Oscar for Best Actress that year. It's a huge role, probably her most famous role. But I think what I remember most about her was how she dressed. That hat, the man's suit, the vest. It was such a unique style, and
somebody was responsible for that. I wonder who the fashion designer who dressed her was. We could probably find that out.
I think, Arthur, that was her style. That Woody,
really?
Yeah, that she liked men's clothing, some men's clothing, and she had this original take on fashion when nobody did. And I mean, Annie Hall is not totally autobiographical, but it's plenty of things that Woody found living with her that they adapted. She was very, very special because she tried every kind of movie. You know, we think of her as always, I think, as Annie Hall and light comedy. But I mean, she played a character in Looking for Mr. Goodbar. That was one strong, tough movie for her to be making. She really, even though many of the films she tried were not commercially successful, she was always stretching as an actor. If you look through her list of credits, they're extraordinary in their variety. It was very interesting, even though in our heads she's always going to be Annie Hall, I think.
And she was romantically linked with the stretch from Warren Beatty to Woody Allen
to Al Pacino.
That's quite a stretch. Just by the way,
and Al Pacino.
Al Pacino. Just for argument's sake, the costume designer on Annie Hall was Ruth Morley. So perhaps she did contribute. By the way, Ruth also did Tootsie, so she's got some terrific credits. You know, some of the film historians talk about Diane Keaton in the same breath as Katharine Hepburn.
Well, that was her role model. She grew up and said that Katharine Hepburn was who she wanted to emulate, even though she kept saying, when they said they would bring it up, she'd say, yeah, but she was elegant. I was not elegant, but I wanted to be a strong woman, though. But I didn't have elegance.
Guys, I want to just come in here and say that what I'm about to say is not to be contrarian. And it's just an honest thought, an honest opinion. There's nothing here that's anything other than subjective. But I never liked Diane Keaton as an actress. I don't know why. I'm just saying it. I do, of course, use the aberrations of she was fantastic in Annie Hall. I thought she was incredible with Jack Nicholson in a movie later on. I forget it was called.
Something's Got to Give.
Something's Got to Give. But for the most part, I just didn't get her. That said, a very dear friend of mine was a guy named Buddy Mora, who was her manager. Buddy was an old Bronx guy, and he got together with Larry Bresner and David Steinberg, the manager. And they managed Robin Williams and Billy Crystal and Diane Keaton. And Buddy told me the story of when she was up for Godfather, and she didn't want to do it. She said, it's not me. It's just, I don't belong in this. And he convinced her. He took a long time to convince her, and he got her $7,000 to do The Godfather, which, of course, the movie was just overcame anything. I never liked her in The Godfather. I really, again, please forgive me. I don't mean this personally in any way. I never got Diane Keaton, except in Annie Hall and the other thing. Just something about it. Maybe that happens to all of us with certain actresses or books or food or what have you, but it's my doing, not anybody else's, but I'm just admitting to it. And that doesn't mean she was bad. It just means that she just didn't work for me. So,
well, I found her in The Godfather to be in many ways the audience, because she's an outsider. Basically, you've got a bunch of criminals operating a criminal business. Even Talia Shire is part of it, because she's part of the family. And Diane Keaton is the outsider. So she was, for me personally, as an audience watching that movie, she was a way to observe these terribly violent characters. So she served as a good counterpoint for me. I liked her. She's very buttoned up in that role. I mean, she's not the free spirit she is in Annie Hall. Kate. It's Kate Adams, right, Julian? I think Kate Adams.
Kay
Adams is a very conservative young woman who falls in love with a Marine hero, obviously Michael Corleone, and she doesn't really know what she's getting into. I'm sure at first it's kind of exciting, and then it becomes not exciting and actually horrendous for her. I think yeah.
You know who the greatest actress in Godfather was? Never said one word of dialogue. And that was the girl he marries when he's in Italy, the young girl. And I don't know her name as an actress, but she was so great. I mean, of course.
Of course, her character name, I think, was Apollonia.
Apollonia. Oh, my
Apollonia,
God.
gorgeous girl, absolutely. But
Never said
Sounds
a
like a
word.
dessert.
Yeah, that's right.
but Diane Keaton's character, I mean, you could see the transition of her into Godfather Part Two, where you see her really develop into a counterpoint to Al Pacino's character, and then of course in three they have a little bit of a coming together again. Although I'm not a big fan of Godfather Part Three. I think that
How can you be?
yeah, it just well, I think with all due respect to Sofia Coppola, who's become a fine director and an interesting director, I just think that she was totally miscast as his daughter, and I think it was a last minute desperation. Julian, wasn't it because Winona Ryder?
Winona
Yeah,
had to pull out. Yeah.
she had to pull
Wouldn't have
out.
helped.
Yeah.
The movie was terrible.
Yeah,
I
I would.
loved what Woody said about Diane Keaton. He said that she was a nervous break. She was like a nervous breakdown in slow motion.
Well, they talk about simpatico from the day they met. It sounds like they really connected as comedians, and she did 8 films with him. So obviously she was his muse, and I think somewhat later replaced by Mia Farrow, but that didn't last very long. And then
A movie I
no, they
loved.
did a lot of films together.
yeah,
They did. But no, when Mia and Woody had their breakup, Leah was going to do Manhattan Mystery, a murder mystery, but then they broke up, and Diane came back for the first time in many years. But they were lifelong friends from the time they met at Play It Again, Sam on Broadway. The big concern was her height versus his height.
Yeah.
And they weren't sure they wanted to cast her because she was taller than Woody. But obviously they got over that problem.
But I'll tell you something strange. One of my favorite Woody Allen movies ever was Manhattan. And I don't even remember Diane Keaton being in the movie. Go figure that out.
oh, they're walking down the street, Arthur, and she's referring to Van Gogh. And Woody gives her a look
I'm
like,
telling you,
what?
I don't
What?
remember her in
Van
the movie.
Gogh?
Yeah, great movie.
It's funny because as tentative and as kind of a little nervous and unsteady and just funny in Annie Hall, in Manhattan, she's an entirely different character. She's got her nose up in the air. She looks at Mariel Hemingway, who Woody's having the affair with, although not really an affair. They're having a love affair, and she's disdainful. She's stuffy. She's obnoxious. She's a little bit of a stuffed shirt, but just so wonderful.
Yeah, it's interesting. She was a very bad student, she said. She was like a C-minus student in high school. She loved to sing. Besides Katharine Hepburn, Judy Garland was an absolute favorite of hers. And of course, we got to hear her sing at the end when she sings It Seems Like Old Times. It's such a beautiful moment and ends that movie.
Whose theme song was that, Julian?
Whose theme song was it?
Seems like old times. Seems like old times.
I don't know.
Arthur Godfrey.
Oh,
Oh,
and all the little Godfreys.
Old times. Yeah.
so Diane Keaton, her real last name was Holl. Keaton, I believe, was her mother's maiden name.
Yes.
And of course, she gets Annie Hall. So it had to be a little autobiographical because she has her real name in it. Annie Hall is such a marvelous movie. And if you took Diane Keaton out of Annie Hall, I don't think you would have had Annie Hall. I think that it's perceived of as Woody's greatest triumph. And I think that I just love that movie. That movie is good. And
how great was she in Red, Steve?
Well, I don't remember Reds very much. I've seen Ben-Hur 1,000 times. I've seen Reds once.
Oh, so she was terrific in Reds.
There you go. Okay, Julian will give us.
Reds was a very fine movie, a movie that was very hard to get made, but finally Paramount did say okay. They were coming off the success of Heaven Can Wait with Warren, but they were concerned. Here's a huge, giant conglomerate making a movie about a communist in the 1970s. But she and Warren, I think by that time maybe have broken up, but they're playing in the movie Lovers, and it's very moving, very, very moving.
Say, Julian, if there was a Hall of Fame of salesmen in the movie business, wouldn't Warren Beatty go in number one?
He would definitely be number one. It
was unbelievable.
Nobody could sell like Warren.
Yeah, Town and Country, hello.
That's really amazing.
Oh, God.
And what he did for Bonnie and Clyde was unheard of. I mean, it was over. It was finished. R.I.P. Goodbye. And he fought and he screamed and he yelled and he got them to come back. And it became the giant hit it was. But it had flopped, not flopped, but it had not done well originally at all.
You know, Arthur mentioned Town and Country. Jumping ahead a little bit, I remember my friend lived next door to the house they used to make that movie, a very strange looking modern edifice. Maybe the building was suffering for some kind of complex, but they set up the craft service table on my friend's driveway. So all these actors came over, and my friend was had a lifelong love affair with Diane Keaton, just loved her work. And she's on his driveway having craft service. But that movie cost $90 million, and I think it grossed $6 million. It's
in excess of $100 million. They got up over $100 million with interest, Steve.
I think that it was an unqualified disaster. I'll tell you, my favorite Diane Keaton Woody film, though, is Love and Death. I think they just this is I guess let's see, this is I think this was before it was before Annie Hall. It's in 1975, so it's early Woody. It takes place during the Russian Revolution. Actually, it would be the Russian. The Napoleonic Wars. That's right. Napoleon is marching on Russia. And she plays a character named Sonia, who's a lifelong friend of Woody's character, Boris. If you ever want to laugh out loud at a Woody Allen movie, watch Diane Keaton and Woody in this just totally wacky, wonderful period costume piece. Julian, you're a fan of that, aren't you?
Oh, yes, I am. And I remember, I think a film, I think it was called Sleeper, where the part of it is that there's a nose that's going to control everything. And they've got Woody and Diane, and they're going to take that nose, and Woody takes out a gun and puts it to the nose and says, if you come one step further, I'm going to shoot that nose. And Diane says, and I've seen him do it. I've seen him shoot a nose. That really killed me. For some reason, I never forgot that particular line. And what Woody said about Diane was that she said to him, look, you're the comic. You take the funny lines. And he said, no. He said, even if I did, somehow her intonation and the way she said her lines made it funnier than what he felt he had written. And often she got the laugh, even though he had given her what he thought was the straight line. So it was...
Do you believe she was a box office star or a box office plus?
It depended on the movie. She had an enormous amount of unsuccessful movies. Enormous. If you look at her credits. But she made some terrific films, too. And I guess if you're fortunate enough to make enough movies, you're going to have some hits if you keep working.
Well, as a producer, if you announce to the town that you have Diane Keaton in your cast, it's almost like a proof of concept. You know, if somebody loved it enough to read it and like it. And I think that's probably how a lot of her films got financed with her, because there are very few female names in the business. If you really stop to think about it, guys are pretty much running the show for the most part. Yes, we have the Meryl Streeps and the Scarlett Johanssons, but you know, who was a bigger name in the 70s and 80s than Diane Keaton? I mean, she was, I think, Money in the Bank. Again,
Meryl Streep, Julie Christie.
yeah, I mean, Julia Roberts, sure, of course, but there have been a few.
Well, that was later. That was later.
Yeah, that was later.
Yeah. No, it's true, Steve, that the male really does dominate as movie stars, but as you said, the Meryl Streeps and the Julia Roberts, there's still some. But Diane Keaton continued to work for many, many, many years. And as actresses age in our country, they generally can't work. But she and Meryl Streep are two that just never stopped working.
Well, she was totally castable without question. Some of her better work is, I think, later on. The movie with Jack Nicholson is a great movie. What was that called again, Julian?
Something's Got to Give.
Something's Got to Give.
Think of the song, movie. Arthur, that song you love.
When an irresistible
thought such as you.
Written by Cole Porter.
Great song.
Yes.
Something's Got to Give was a giant hit with a wonderful cast. And Nancy Meyers wrote and directed it, I think. And it was a very, very successful movie with Jack Nicholson doing unbelievable work. And what was so important about that movie was to show that older people can fall in love at the end and have a romance.
Yes.
I mean, right now we're such a youth-oriented society, but what made that movie so special was these older people, despite the Amanda Peets and the Keanu Reeves, these gorgeous-looking people, it's the older people who have the big romance at the end.
She was also in Father of the Bride.
She was.
Which was a big hit. Steve Martin, Marty Short.
And she became, in those films, I see her as being kind of like a straight man. She's not the person doing the comedy. I mean, she's obviously working opposite one of the great comedians in movies, Steve Martin, but she carries it well. And I liked her. And Father of the Bride became a bit of a franchise. There was Father of the Bride 2, and I think they recently did it, I think, with a Latino audience. Father of the Bride 3.
Andy Garcia.
Yeah.
Did you guys find that Diane Keaton had sex appeal?
No, that's a good question. I don't think she was known for being a sexy presence on screen, but she certainly could be beguiling. Julian, I'll defer to you. What did you think?
It's an interesting question, Arthur and Steve. From my point of view, not the way we typically think of what sex appeal is, but she had a great appeal, and that can certainly eventually turn into sex appeal. But initially,
I'll give you an example. Meryl Streep, great actress, world-class actress. Certainly not, Gene Tierney, gorgeous and whatever. She had sex appeal. She always had sex appeal.
As they once said, it's in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
So it depends on who you are, what
Audrey May. Just kidding.
Well, I don't. It's funny. If I don't remember seeing Diane Keaton ever in a love scene, although probably in Looking for Mr. Goodbar. Julian, would you say?
Yes, she was in that. And I think this movie, Mrs. Soffel, I think that was
right. But for the most part, not known for doing love scenes. No. Obviously, judging from how she treated her opportunity to get nude and hair, it probably was an indicator that she wasn't going to be doing that. But you didn't hire Diane Keaton for her sex appeal. You hired her because she's a terrific actress.
Yeah.
And she also had great appeal. Let's not forget that. I think of all the people who are famous who died in the last year or so, I can't tell you the amount of people that took this personally who never knew her. There was something about the fact that she died that really affected strangers because there was a great life force that she had. We didn't know she had been ill, and it was a loss to a lot of people. I was surprised at the enormous amount of grief that was shown I think she would have been pleased and surprised herself.
I think that has a lot to do with, generally speaking, entertainers, singers, actors, actresses, because really what it is reminders of our youth, of times in our life. And that brings that home because, you think about, let's say Diane Keaton as an example, you're going to think about a movie that you saw her in when you were maybe 40 years younger. Life was a bit different. And so it's just kind of like a playback of your life. And that's what that's all about. And that's part of the celebrity thing and why when they die, they make big headlines.
Sure. I mean, in many ways, they're part of the fabric of our lives. I mean, we've watched their movies over and over again. I almost feel, even if I've never met the person, it's an old friend on screen. Every time I watch an old movie and I see Errol Flynn or Cary Grant or John Wayne, Steve McQueen, it's like having a friend on screen to spend time with. And I think that Diane Keaton had such a long and interesting filmography with all different types of roles. People remember her, like I said, as part of the fabric of their lives.
Steve, I heard a great interview years ago. I was living out in LA and I'm listening in the car radio, and it's in the afternoon or something. And they're interviewing Sammy Cahn, the great, great composer. And Sammy Cahn says his best friend was talk radio. He used to love to listen to people talk on the radio. This is before podcasts, by the way. But that was his friend. He lost a lot of friends and stuff, but he knew he could turn the radio on, and it was a very intimate kind of a thing, it was like friends to him. So I think that's very true in just general entertainment. We get to know these people as if we really know them. That's why sometimes if you're in a business like we are and you get to meet some of these people, you're shocked at how different they are than they are, in screen or TV or records or what have you.
Mike, do you have a favorite Diane Keaton movie?
Of course, a couple of them. Annie Hall, of course, but then, of course, The Godfather. And you had mentioned the two Father of the Bride movies. I thought her chemistry with Steve Martin in those films were just fantastic and everything. And it's interesting because you guys were like mentioning, her sex appeal and everything. She seemed like the person that you could actually get a date with, that you could actually, be fine taking home to your mom and everything. She wasn't a bombshell by any mean, but she would be somebody you could hang out with, somebody have great conversations with, and, someone to have fun with and everything. And she was just always that type of woman. And she was I thought she was beautiful, and I thought her acting was great. And in the multiple roles you've seen her in, and she used to pop up in places that you'd never expected her to pop into, including on TV and such too. So it was just always interesting with that.
Sure.
What also makes her so, I think, important is the fact that she was an original. You can't say, oh, she reminds me of, or she's kind of like. She was really an original, especially as we said earlier, with fashion, with the ability. She was a very, very beautifully a photographer, made some beautiful photography books. She was able to do many, many things. She also wrote, she directed, she directed a lot of little films. She did a lot in her lifetime. She really was able to accomplish a lot. She had a big work ethic, which she gave credit to her mother for, and she had a real strong will. Jack Nicholson quoted her as saying she knew the entire script before she started to shoot. She knew the script. She had memorized it all. So she had this work ethic that was, I think, somewhat unique for some movie stars, where it really, really mattered for her, the work she was doing. And I was glad to find that out recently.
blended.
I think that just generalize. I think that she was similar to a lot of girl movie stars out of the 1930s. Some who were
Closer
nameless.
there. That's right. You're right.
She was very much like, I don't know, Miriam Hopkins and
Jean Arthur.
Jean
Norma
Arthur.
Shearer,
Carol Lombard.
Carol Lombard, yes.
Yep. That's right.
One of my favorite scenes, and it's blending Woody's filmmaking ability with performance, is Annie Hall and Woody's character are meeting, kind of having the first conversation they have after the tennis match, and they're in Annie's apartment. He's looking at her photographs, and they're saying one thing in dialogue, but Woody has the subtitles of what they're really saying underneath. It is an hysterical exchange and shows how insecure both of them are. And I think that people just love that relationship, and they were horrified by the obstacles they each had to face and the funny sequences. When he goes to the nightclub and she sings for the first time. And I guess it's Paul Simon comes up to her afterwards and talks about how much he loves the set and offers to take them over to a party. And Woody says to her, "But you remember we've got the thing." He doesn't want to go to some stupid party. And
I was going to say, we'll veer off to Woody Allen for a second, just for a second. I sat in a screening room with about 6 guys, 2 girls, 6 guys, and watched a movie called Broadway Danny Rose, and we were all literally falling down laughing. I mean, it's a non sequitur to what we're talking about, but I just thought I'd have to mention it.
No, Diane Keaton definitely was not in Broadway Danny. That was during his Mia Farrow era.
Yes.
Definitely.
But the movie, I'm just saying, God, what a great movie, Broadway Danny Rose.
I was so surprised to read that an article about her in Vanity Fair said that Diane Keaton is the most reclusive actress since Greta Garbo. I was rather surprised about that. But I guess, I did watch her on Charlie Rose more than once, so I was surprised to read that. I didn't know it, but after all, Vanity Fair, they must know it.
Hey, Julian, along these lines, in Bullets Over Broadway, who wrote the screenplay, the movie before the show?
The screenplay was Woody and Doug McGrath.
So they own the rights.
Well, yeah, that's how we did the Broadway play.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And the film company that had that movie?
It's probably either United Artists or Orion, one of them.
Did they get involved in your negotiations for the play?
No. In those days, Arthur, nobody cared about the theater rights. It changed later. But in those days, the author owned the theater because no one was going to, quote, make a Broadway play after a movie. Once the movie was out, that would be the end. And of course, that's changed enormously. Boy. The very first one was Carnival. That was made from the movie Lily. It was the first time that it was made. Something was made from a movie into a play. It always went the other way, play to movie, and that was one of the first. Did you have the idea to make the movie into a play? No.
Whose idea was it?
I'm sure Woody's.
Getting back to Diane, I have to say that from a fashion point of view, because of her character in Annie Hall, I think she popularized the wearing of hats. Women generally did not wear hats that I could see generally. After Annie Hall, women were wearing hats again. And of course, for those of you who are listening, you can't see, I have a picture of Diane behind me. Actually, it's a shot of her from The Godfather. Once again, she's wearing a hat. She popularized hat wearing.
And probably men's ties and vests and
there you go. There you go. Right? Now the other thing the other thing they're always saying about the lack of female roles, that there just aren't that many. But one of the things that Diane started to do, she started to appear in ensemble pieces with a number of contemporary actress peers. I mean, she did The First Wives Club with Bette Midler and Goldie Hawn.
A
And
big
then
hit.
big hit. And then more recently, she did the book club, and I think the second book club. And because of that, a number of actors who weren't getting work started appearing in these ensemble pieces. So she was a boon in her own way to female comedy.
Well,
And
Warren Beatty, known as a great Lothario and having a lot of romances, also had a wonderful story. He didn't tell it, but it was told for him, which was the fact that Diane was very afraid of flying, and she had to fly to New York. And they were together at that point. And Warren got on the plane with her, flew the 5.5 hours to New York, said goodbye, and flew back right after that. Now that's what you call a romantic guy.
Chivalrous. Yes, Warren would do anything. He was unbelievable. Trying to think of what his last movie was. I can't think. Was it Town and Country, Steve?
No, it was not. It was the movie about Howard Hughes. The movie about Howard Hughes.
Rules Don't Apply. What a boy, my God.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't even think I saw it. You know, when you say Howard
A
Hughes,
lot of people can say the same thing, Steve.
I mean, when you say Howard Hughes, I immediately go to Leo DiCaprio, but obviously it was a different movie.
That was a great movie, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. Well, you know, actors like Diane Keaton do not come along very often, and if ever, and we will miss her. She is just the nice thing about performers is they never really go away though. You know, we've got their whole filmography at our fingertips. If we want Diane Keaton, we can pop her on anytime we want, and there's a lot of films to choose from.
You know what's great now on TV? My wife showed me how to do it. You can speak into the TV, just say, Cary Grant movies, and every movie he ever made will appear in front of you, and you can just plug in anyone you want, and likewise with anybody.
I don't know if you fellas ever saw a movie that she directed called Heaven, and it was about the afterlife. It was one of her early movies. Did either of you even hear of it or see it?
No, I saw it mentioned in the Wikipedia article, but I didn't know anything about it. But I know that she was a religious gal.
Well, I don't know how religious, but
But well, let's just say that she hopefully wanted to believe in heaven.
well,
And
she was brought up by a Methodist home, and it was
right.
somewhat depicted in Annie Hall as rather interesting, to say the least. Anyhow, I think we'll always remember Diane. That's for sure.
We definitely will. Let's talk about the movies we've seen recently that had an impact on us. I've never, well, I shouldn't say never, but I'm not as learned about musical theater as you guys are. But I've been watching the MGM Kiss Me Kate this week with Katherine Grayson and Howard Keel. And I am so loving the score to that and the comedy and the interaction of this play within a play. It's funny. I first heard Katherine Grayson's voice just a couple years ago. I watched Anchors Away for the first time with Gene Kelly and Frank Sinatra, and I came away with it saying to myself, "Oh my God, that voice, Katherine Grayson. She's what do they call it, Julian? A coloratura soprano or whatever they call it."
Sounds good, Steve.
But she's wonderful, and you got the great Ann Miller in Kiss Me Kate, and it's funny because I never thought of Howard Keel as a musical star. The movie I saw of him when I was a kid was a movie called Day of the Triffids.
No,
Wait a second. You never heard of Howard Keel as a musical star?
Well, I didn't discover him as a musical star.
Did you ever see Seven Brides for Seven Brothers?
Yes, I finally saw Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, but my first brush with Howard was in Day of the Triffids, which is a great science fiction movie. Do you guys know this movie?
I sold it.
You sold it.
That was part of a
Absolutely.
package
the
that I
Triffids?
sold to television. So I know Dave the Triffids. Yes.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Arthur,
did you guys hear about this town in Italy where it was built for retired accordion players, and they built a church there, and the church was called Our Lady of Spain.
Oh God.
Anybody get that?
how did we
Julian
go
got
from
it.
Arthur? How did we go from Day of the Triffids to retirement home?
Just
for
a thought.
accordion play?
That's all. Just a thought. Just a thought.
That's pretty good.
Kiss
Julian,
me,
what?
Kate,
Yeah.
strange dear, but true dear. When I'm close. What a show! Are you kidding?
Let's say this is Cole Porter at the end of his career.
Cole Porter.
Well,
And-
I'm just loving it, and of course you've got the two great character actors, Keenan Wynn and James Whitmore, playing these two mob hitmen or whatever they're called, collectors, I guess, and they're very funny.
Brush Up Your Shakespeare is one of the classic numbers in musicals of all time.
Now, this started out obviously on the stage first, I would
Yes.
assume.
It
Yes.
certainly did.
Who played the key parts in the stage version?
I don't know.
I think it was Howard Keel,
Okay.
I don't know.
and if it wasn't, it may have been a man named Alfred Drake. Easy to find that out. I
Easy
will
to
say
find.
this: I had the pleasure of meeting Katherine Grayson in Boston when she was long in years. And you know, when you think of actresses with big bosoms, you think of Marilyn Monroe, and you think of there's a lot of different actors. Katherine Grayson's bosoms were the biggest bosoms in the whole wide world. She was fantastic.
God love them. God love
Yes.
them. And God
Yes.
love her. But she's a lot of fun. Julian, what was the last movie you actually sat down and watched?
Just watched again because I love this movie called Patterns, based
Oh,
on
sure.
a television show and then made into a movie with one of my favorite actors as the lead, Van Heflin, but a wonderful cast with Everett Sloan and
Fantastic movie.
yeah,
Written by Rod Serling.
and directed by Fielder Cook.
There
So
you
you
go.
have a lot of talent in this film, and there was the wonderful woman Beatrice Straight, and there was Elizabeth Wilson. I mean, these were on their way. They were not known at that time.
Ed Begley.
And Ed Begley never been better.
What a movie.
It was great to see Ed Begley on the stage. Can you believe that he played William Jennings Bryan, and the man he was playing opposite on Broadway was a guy named Paul Muni, and that was Inherit the Wind.
Oh, yeah.
I
course.
just sat there mesmerized.
And wasn't Patterns though really supposedly like the poor man's executive suite?
Yes, I think so, Arthur. I'm not even sure you had to be poor. I'd say the middle class. I wouldn't make you poor.
It
man.
was
Great movie.
It was so successful when it debuted on live television. They did something they never did before. They did another playing of it live, back to back. I mean, not back to back, but probably in the next couple of weeks. Because when live television, you had no post production; it just came out. And it was very, very successful. And Rod got I think he got his first Emmy for writing for that.
And it's also exciting because they did have kinescopes. They made kinescopes of those movies. And if you can go in New York to the Museum of Broadcasting, you often can sit and order up and watch these kinescopes of some of the great early television, specifically shows like Playhouse 90 and Climax, Philco Theater, the Armstrong Circle Theater.
What quality those shows had?
They were, and some of our greatest writers and directors of motion pictures came there.
Mike, you're usually out seeing new movies as opposed to old movies. Have you seen anything new lately?
Haven't been to the movie theaters lately, but we did watch a great documentary actually last night. We watched a documentary on David Bowie, the musician, and it was called Moonage Daydream. It's on Netflix, and it's about his life, but not his personal life, more his career as the different aspects of his career, how he evolved and how his music changed and how he changed from being the spaceman to being the goth to being, you know, the
Ziggy
mod.
Stardust.
Exactly, Ziggy. And so it was just amazing talking all about that. And it was just fantastic. It was over 2 hours, and it was a wonderful, wonderful film.
We distributed his film, The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Yes.
Which kind of, in its own way, would stand up today, I think.
Oh, very
sure.
much so. Very much so. He's done a lot of more acting than you would have imagined, because he also did the movie Labyrinth. He also did a Twin Peaks movie. And, you know, it's just all these different movies that he appeared in. Even later in life, he, you know, before he died, he appeared in some films. So it was just really fantastic to do. Also want to promote another TV show that we've actually just got finished watching last night. It's a kind of a sequel to a movie called The Four Seasons, and it stars Tina Fey, and it is an amazing show. It's on Netflix. It's only 8 episodes and wonderful, wonderful cast.
What is the title?
The Four Seasons.
The Four Seasons. Okay.
And
Alan Alda.
Did
Alan
did he write this series too?
He actually is the executive producer. He worked with Tina Fey on it.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
And he actually appears in the first episode.
What about you, Arthur? What was the last movie you watched?
A dear close friend of mine called me last week and said, I need a movie to see. I need a movie so bad. I'm dying to see something great. Just give me a thought. And I said, okay, Stalag 17. I haven't seen Stalag 17 in 40 years. Guys, one of the great fucking movies ever. Stalag 17.
When was Pearl Harbor, Price? Or don't you know that? December 7th, 41. What time? 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock in Berlin. They were having lunch in Cleveland.
Oh,
I've memorized the entire soundtrack, Arthur. My ex-boss, Stan Rosenfield, who's the top PR executive in LA, he and I we call each other Hoffy, because that's Richard Erdman's character, the barracks chief. I call, hi, Hoffy, how are you? That movie is a killer movie, and won William Holden, of course, the best actor that year, up against some very stiff competition. Although I think that Montgomery Clift From Here to Eternity and Burt Lancaster and From Here to Eternity knocked each other's off, so Holden could get it.
What won Best Picture? Did Stalag 17 win Best Picture?
No, it was From Here to Eternity that year. That won Best Picture. But Stalag 17 is just a perfect film to watch any time of day.
There was a comedian, kind of famous comedian in those days that Julian will remember, named Larry Storch.
Oh, yes.
And his brother, Jay Lawrence, did all those impressions when he came into the barracks and was doing the impressions of Hitler and God knows who. But
everything is Gesundheit.
The movie is just one of those things that it gets better and better and better as you look at it.
Larry Storch was a co-star of F Troop for many years.
Oh, yeah, opposite Forrest Tucker.
And I was happy to hire him to come in and replace Professor Irwin Corey in Sly Fox that I did on Broadway. And he was just a wonderful guy to work with.
Yeah.
Also, really you had Gil Stratton. Gil Stratton, who was a sportscaster in LA for many years, specialized in horse racing. He played Cookie. I love the opening narration. I don't know about you, but I always got me upset about all those war pictures, all about flying leathernecks and submarine patrols and American guerrillas in the Philippines. But there never was a movie about prisoners of war.
You even had the stutter down.
Yes, exactly.
How about Don Taylor, right?
Don Taylor and Billy Wilder. It's a Billy Wilder tour de force. He took an original Broadway play, which was moderately successful, and he added comedy to it by putting Harvey Lembeck and Robert Strauss in the role as Harry and Animal, and they're just so funny, and they give the movie a certain levity.
Steve, how about Otto Preminger
as the commandant?
Call from his commander and putting on his boots. Come on,
Von Scherbach. Von Scherbuck. I could talk about this movie till the cows come home. It's just one of my
Well,
all-time favorites, and
there it is. There it
I
is. Yeah.
definitely good choice. Very good
Yeah.
choice. So now we can turn it over to our esteemed producer, Mike Faber, who always has a good thing to say.
I have words. You have reached the end of this episode of the Tales from Hollywoodland podcast. Remember, we couldn't do this without you. We want to hear from you, so please write us anytime at talesfromhollywoodland@gmail.com. Remember, you could also find us wherever fine podcasts are found. And now you could even find us up on our YouTube channel. If you made it this far into the episode, why not subscribe and give us a thumbs up? That's the best way for you to get in touch with us. And you know what? It also helps us with the algorithms, and also, other folks could find us. And you could also spread the Tales from Hollywood love around the world. If you're on social media, please follow us up on Instagram and Facebook. Before we get out of here, let's check with the guys and see what's happening this week on their podcast. Julian, who are you talking to this week?
This week is Adam Nimoy, the son of Leonard Nimoy, who's directed many, many television shows and had made a documentary about his father called For the Love of Spock. The Love of Spock. Very articulate, started out as an attorney and fell in love with directing, wanted to direct, and very forthcoming about Leonard being a recovering alcoholic, about his own problems with relating to his father, and also the fact that he himself was a pothead for many years, but a very, very moving man. I think I was very moved by his story.
That is awesome. Steve, what's going on Saturday night at the movies?
Bob Hertzberg is one of our favorite guests, a prominent film historian and author, has written a book called Savages and Saints, the history of Native Americans in film. So we have a spirited discussion about how the way we perceive Native Americans, who, of course, when we first started watching shows, they were known as Indians. And we talk about some of the movies that changed the course of human events and depictions, not only Dances with Wolves, which was a more recent variety, that's only 30 years ago, but going back to 1950 to Broken Arrow with Jimmy Stewart and Jeff Chandler as one of the first to portray Indians in a dignified manner. So that's our guest, and Bob's always a very interesting guy, because not only does the book introduce hundreds of films to you, but it gives you the background, the real background biographies of the Native Americans who are being portrayed in the movies. And it's a bit of a
know, Steve, Yakima Canutt was one of the greatest, if not the greatest, stuntman in movies, and I believe he was a Native American.
Absolutely, Julian. Absolutely.
Certainly the most famous.
He staged the famous chariot race in Ben-Hur in 59. Absolutely.
And he goes under the horses live in Stagecoach.
Oof.
Unbelievable how frightening that scene is. And it's not any kind of special effects. It's Yakima and those horses almost.
Did he do that in Ben-Hur too? Was that him?
Did he do
Ben-Hur?
what?
Did he go under the horses in Ben-Hur?
I don't know. I know
By the way,
Stagecoach.
By the way, Julian, I worked for Leonard Nimoy for 2 weeks once. He was on the road doing his one-man show where he plays Vincent Van Gogh's brother. Not Vincent Van Theo, exactly. Theo. Not Vincent Van Gogh, Vincent Van Gogh.
Murray Van Gogh.
I'll never forget sitting at a dinner table with him in Aurora, Illinois, west of Chicago. And I'm sitting there with Leonard Nimoy. So I say to him, Leonard, I've always been a big fan of Star Trek. And he looked at me very kindly and said, Steve, we are working on the theater right now. We do not discuss television or the movies.
That is awesome. Arthur, what do we got next time on our show?
Leonard Nimoy was my friend from the drugstore on Barrington up by the cul-de-sac, Steve. Sure. It was first of all, before I tell what we're doing, I just want to say one thing for all of us. To our producer, Mikey Faber, the best producer of podcasts ever. Mike,
thank you.
And we
Thank
want
you,
you
my
to
friend.
know that. We want you to know that. Just terrific. We are going to be talking about musical stars, the likes of Howard Keel. Oh gosh, there are so many of them, and we're going to talk about them in the days of the great musicals. There were Ray Bolger. There were so many of them, and the movies were so great. Steve was just telling us about he's watching Kiss Me Kate right now. It doesn't get better, so that's unfortunately it's a genre that's not around anymore. But boy, if you can find any of these musicals from years ago, they're gold. And we'll talk about them and their stars.
That is awesome. Gentlemen, it's always a pleasure to work with each and every one of you guys. It's been very cool. And we've been doing this now for over 2 years. It's just amazing to think that we've been doing it for that long. On behalf of Steve, Arthur, and Julian, thanks again for listening. This is your producer and announcer, Mike Faber. We'll see you here next time on Tales from Hollywoodland. Your Hollywood adventure starts right here.
Hello, Internet weirdos. If you watched Land of the Lost every Saturday morning, did the Al Jaffe fold in every month in Mad Magazine, and listened to every song on the Pac-Man Fever album 8,000 times, why, you just might be as weird as us. So join us on the Flopcast. It's a silly podcast for silly people on the ESO network and at flopcast.net.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.